So now to do those renderings, what we need is basically a rendering of our car with a transparent background. We need a rendering of this background itself without the car and the shadow. And then we need one rendering where we only have, for example, the shadow, but no car and no background. So if we go to Blender, you can see that I modified my scene a little bit. I have a very large backdrop, and my initial plane I put onto a different layer. I don't need it anymore. And this object here, I can give a very bright color. For example, I can call this one shadow catcher material, and I added a sunlight. I need the sunlight basically now to simulate the type of shadow this image-based lighting in my outdoor environment will create. And that's going to be very easy because the images show the sun, which is casting the shadow. So I can place an artificial sun roughly at the same location and angle in relationship to my object, and then just match the size of the shadow. Something you will maybe notice at one point when you take a look at a lot of those renderings, the shadows are always the giveaway if it is a rendering or if actually it is a real product photo, because there's a lot of trickery you have to do to get those renderings somewhat looking decently, and the process I'm going to show you will illustrate that a little bit. So I'm going to turn down the energy of my sun, and I'm going to increase a little bit the energy of my environment image, and then I will do a rendering and try to see where, for example, the shadow mainly is positioned. And as you can see, it's a lot below the car and then a little bit to the side. So if I go maybe into a top view, so you can see that it extends a little bit to the right side, but not too much. So as it looks like, we roughly have a sun that maybe is more above the object, a little bit to the left. And to make this a little bit easier to see, I'm going to insert a chrome ball. That always helps reading those environment images a lot. Move it up and then turn rendering on again. So somewhat to the left there is the sun. So I can go into this front view, take my sun, and then of course currently you don't really see anything happening because my sun has no energy. Then I turn my image-based lighting off and then actually turn my sun on, and then I can increase the strength a little bit more. And for example, I can play with the size if I want extremely sharp shadows, or 1 to have softer shadows, 4 makes very soft shadows. So here the important part is to try to simulate a setting where you get a shadow quality that is somewhat similar to what you will get from this image-based lighting. And also for the sphere, you can see the shadow is roughly down there, so 45 degrees down. So maybe something like this actually would be okay, and maybe a little bit softer because the shadow is not very pronounced with that image-based lighting. Okay, so that, for example, was now the first step we needed to do to set up our environment and prepare everything for rendering. In the next video, I'm going to show you then how we utilize different render passes to compose everything together.